Texas A&M, a really big win in the Orange Bowl over North Carolina. You guys can argue amongst yourselves how big you thought it was, but I enjoyed watching it. I don't have to sit here and constantly argue about conference supremacy and what this game means and whether it's meaningless or not. You just got to tell people to shut up sometimes and enjoy what they're watching. It's like a crying baby in a corner. Well, not a baby. Let's say it's a 5-year-old. Just leave them alone. They'll cry themselves out eventually. And so too will this bowl games don't mean anything crowd. Just block them out. Who cares? Enjoy. Did you enjoy the game? Because if you enjoyed the game, that's really all you need to worry about. Jimbo Fisher afterwards, though, spectacle. First off, he filibustered the post-game interview girl. She didn't even get a question in for like 3 minutes. Secondly, he self-diagnosed a pulled hamstring right there on the stage, which is impressive in and of itself. He dodged, I think, like half a dozen Gatorade baths. Texas A&M players were attacking those oranges like they were the last meal they will ever eat on earth. A lot of them didn't even bother to peel the skin off, so I admired that. But Jimbo Fisher said a lot of things, like he always does, and then he said, we're not done, we're just getting started. And I had some buddies texting me, oh, blah, 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 A&M's not going to do this, not going to do that. I want to be crystal clear about this. Texas A&M is going to be in the college football playoff picture for years to come. Everyone's looking around at how little parity there is in college football and how the system is only built to allow the few to compete. And I think it's total ignorance. I think it's very misplaced. And the diagnosis for what's truly wrong with college football has very little to do with the system in place. I think a lot of what is eroding at the fabric of college football, well, one of the things is folks not understanding how to build programs and how to properly hire people, because you don't have football people hiring football people. You got boosters hiring football people. Well, at Texas A&M, they got it right. The first thing they did was they hired the right head coach. Jimbo Fisher comes in. It's a guy you never have to guess with. You know what his principles and values are. You know that he understands the blueprint of how to build a program. He has the entire infrastructure built, and there are multiple kind of congruent parallel avenues of infrastructure. Recruiting infrastructure, for example, is totally different than play calling infrastructure. He's got it all in place. Recruiting, speaking of which, is doing very well right now. I think they continue to up their recruiting game year over year. They have proper investment everywhere investment is needed. Jimbo Fisher does not get told no, whether it's facility enhancements, which they don't need right now at all. He's got a recruiting budget. They've got everything they need to succeed, and if they don't have it, they can get it by tomorrow. They have built line of scrimmage like you have to do in major college football to win. They've built depth along their lines of scrimmage. They continue to add depth there. The young skill talent, you saw some of it on display in the bowl game last night, continues to come on. They got to get better there. They are getting better. That's how you recruit. I'll tell you the difference, though. They are building with sort of an ovens mentality, whereas a lot of folks want a microwave mentality. That's not the programs. Those aren't the programs you look at as setting up for long-term sustained success. Texas A&M is setting up for long-term sustained success. They're in the oven right now. You first off had to turn it on and let it heat up, and then you put the food in there, and you got to wait a little while for it to cook. But once it's hot, you can just keep popping it in there, and it doesn't take nearly as long anymore. The microwave mentality, that's what a lot of folks want in a hire. That's what a lot of folks are looking for. Like, we want to compare everyone to Alabama, and if they don't get there within 1 or 2 years, they're just never going to get there. That's not the way you do it. Texas A&M's doing it the right way. And here is the final domino that has to fall at Texas A&M. Because a lot of people aren't going to believe what I'm saying is going to come to fruition until this domino falls. First off, huge credit to Kellen Mond. I mean, look at that embrace with he and Jimbo Fisher at the very end of that game. The Orange Bowl game tells you a lot. Tells you everything you need to know. Fisher has stood up for him at every turn, and it's really easy to understand why and how close that relationship was between those two guys. So I enjoyed watching that. I've enjoyed watching Kellen Mond. He's not the greatest quarterback in the history of the Southeastern Conference, but he was a very dependable guy, a pretty consistent guy. And so quarterback, having said all that about Kellen Mond, that's the domino. If all I do with Texas A&M is get them a superstar quarterback, whether it be recruiting or through the transfer portal, and trust me, either could happen at this point, that's what it's going to take. If you put a Tua Tagovailoa, Kyle Trask, Deshaun Watson, whatever, if you put that type of quarterback in College Station under Jimbo Fisher, they will have arrived at that point on the national playoff scene for everyone, and they won't be going away. Because as we've seen with Bama, as we've seen with Clemson, as we've seen with the other big boys, once you get the first one in there, they follow. It just sets up a pipeline. Once you get that first major elite quarterback, then you'll never be without one. Because if you don't recruit them, transfers will come in there because you will have proven that you are one of those premier destinations. Keep an eye on Texas A&M. I am telling you, don't be shocked when all of a sudden, they're the program pushing Alabama. They're the program capable of getting in the playoff even without winning a conference or a division. That is where Texas A&M is going to be when they get quarterback figured out. Because you get quarterback figured out, receivers easy to get figured out. They already have lines of scrimmage figured out. They already got some pretty good tailbacks down there, and will continue to have them. Just keep watching Texas A&M.